Story 35 of the Priest and the Goat. Once upon a time in a quaint village, there lived a priest named Father John. He was known far and wide for his piety, wisdom, and dedication to his religious duties. Father John was deeply respected by the villagers, who often sought his counsel and guidance. One sunny morning, as Father John was walking through the village square, he noticed a commotion near the marketplace. A group of villagers had gathered around an old goat, and they seemed to be arguing and bickering with one another. Curious, Father John approached the crowd and inquired about the situation. A farmer named Jacob stepped forward and said, "Father, we are arguing over the ownership of this goat. It was found wandering in the fields, and we can't decide who it belongs to." The crowd turned to Father John, hoping that he would settle the dispute. Father John looked at the goat, which appeared tired and hungry. He then addressed the villagers, saying, "It is not right for us to argue and quarrel over the ownership of this poor creature. Let us resolve this matter fairly and justly." Father John suggested that they take the goat to the nearby churchyard and tie it to a tree. He instructed the villagers to return the following morning to see to whom the goat would choose to go. "If the goat walks towards one of you," he said, "then it shall be deemed that the goat belongs to that person." The villagers agreed to Father John's plan and took the goat to the churchyard. They tied it to a tree and left it with food and water. The next morning, the villagers gathered eagerly in the churchyard, curious to see the outcome. As they watched, the goat slowly approached Father John and nuzzled him gently. It was clear that the goat had chosen him. The villagers were amazed and delighted. They congratulated Father John and acknowledged that the goat rightfully belonged to him. Father John, however, had other plans. He smiled and said, "My dear villagers, I appreciate your kind gesture, but I have decided to give this goat to a needy family in our village who will benefit from it more than I will." The villagers were deeply touched by Father John's selflessness and generosity. They realized that his actions reflected the true spirit of their faith and teachings. The goat was indeed given to a struggling family, and it brought them much-needed milk and companionship. Father John's act of kindness and fairness served as a reminder to the villagers that in their faith, fairness, compassion, and charity were more important than personal gain. His wise and noble example continued to inspire the village, reinforcing the values of justice and generosity for generations to come. The end. Story 36, The Ant and the Dove. Once upon a time, in a lush and vibrant forest, there lived an ant named Andy. Andy was a diligent worker and spent his days gathering food for his ant colony. He was admired by his fellow ants for his unwavering dedication to his responsibilities. One hot summer day, as Andy was scurrying along the forest floor in search of crumbs, he came across a small, gentle dove trapped in a hunter's net. The poor bird was struggling and cooing in distress, unable to free itself. Andy's heart went out to the dove. He knew that the dove's life was in danger, and he couldn't bear to see an innocent creature suffer. Without hesitation, Andy climbed up the net strands using his tiny but strong mandibles. He nibbled and gnawed at the net's fibers, working tirelessly to set the dove free. After much effort, Andy succeeded in cutting through the net, and the dove was released from its entanglement. The dove fluttered its wings and flew to a nearby branch, its eyes filled with gratitude. It looked down at Andy and said, "Thank you, kind ant, for saving my life. I am forever grateful to you." Andy, still catching his breath from the hard work, smiled up at the dove and replied, "You're very welcome, dear dove. It was the right thing to do. We should all help one another when we can." The dove nodded and said, "Your act of kindness will never be forgotten. If you ever find yourself in trouble, remember that I am here to help you, just as you helped me today." With those words, the dove flew away, leaving Andy filled with a warm feeling of contentment. Time passed, and one day, disaster struck the forest. A raging fire, fueled by dry underbrush and strong winds, swept through the trees, engulfing everything in its path. The forest was soon ablaze, and the animals were in a state of panic. Andy and his fellow ants scurried about, desperately searching for safety. The fire raged closer and closer, and it seemed as though all hope was lost. Just when it seemed that the flames would consume the ant colony, a shadow descended from the sky. It was the dove, returning the favor of Andy's earlier kindness. The dove carried water in its beak, which had dropped onto the flames, helping to extinguish the fire near the ant colony. The ant colony was saved, and the ants emerged from their hiding places to find the dove perched on a branch, watching over them. They realized that the dove had kept its promise and had come to their aid in their time of need. Grateful tears filled Andy's eyes as he said, "Thank you, dear dove, for saving us just as we saved you. Your kindness has touched our hearts, and we are forever indebted to you." The dove smiled and replied, "Kindness knows no boundaries, my friends. It is a gift that keeps giving, and it has the power to create bonds between even the smallest of creatures. Let us remember that we are all connected in this beautiful forest, and together, we can weather any storm." From that day forward, the ants and the dove lived in harmony in the forest, helping and supporting each other in times of need. Their story served as a reminder to all the creatures of the forest that acts of kindness, no matter how small, can create lasting friendships and bring light in even the darkest of times. The end. Story 37, Keeping the Roots Stronger. In a quiet and picturesque village nestled at the base of a towering mountain range, there lived a wise old gardener named Sarah. Sarah had spent her entire life tending to the village garden, which was renowned for its lush and vibrant flowers, plants, and trees. Her garden was a source of pride for the entire village, and people from far and wide came to admire its beauty. One day, a traveler passing through the village approached Sarah and said, "Your garden is indeed magnificent, but I have heard that it's not just the surface beauty that makes it special. People say that the roots of your plants and trees are incredibly strong. Is that true?" Sarah nodded and replied, "Yes, it is true. The strength of the roots is what sustains the beauty above the ground. Over the years, I have paid as much attention to what happens below the surface as I have to what blooms on top. Strong roots provide stability, nourishment, and resilience to the plants, allowing them to thrive even in the harshest of conditions. The traveler was intrigued and asked, "But how do you ensure that the roots of your garden remain strong and healthy?" Sarah smiled and invited the traveler to stay a while so she could share the story of her garden's roots. Many years ago, when Sarah had first started tending to the garden, she had encountered a problem. The soil in the village was rocky and not very fertile. The plants struggled to grow deep roots, which made them susceptible to toppling over during strong winds or heavy rains. Determined to find a solution, Sarah sought advice from the village's elder, who was known for his wisdom. The elder told her about a secret technique that had been passed down through generations. The technique involved planting seeds along with small rocks deep into the ground. As the plants grew, their roots would encounter the rocks and be forced to push harder and reach deeper in search of nutrients and stability. This process would make the roots stronger over time. Sarah followed the elder's advice diligently. She carefully planted seeds and rocks together in the garden, ensuring that every plant faced the challenge of rocky soil. She also nurtured the garden with care, providing the right amount of water and sunlight. As the years went by, the garden flourished. The plants and trees grew tall and strong, and their roots extended deep into the rocky soil. They could withstand storms, droughts, and all the challenges that nature threw their way. Sarah explained to the traveler, "The secret to keeping the roots stronger lies in the challenges they face." Just as in life, facing adversity and overcoming obstacles make us stronger and more resilient. The plants in my garden learned to adapt and thrive in less than ideal conditions, and that made all the difference. The traveler thanked Sarah for sharing her wisdom and her garden story. He left the village with a newfound understanding that the strength of one's character, like the roots of Sarah's garden, is nurtured through challenges and adversities. Just as Sarah had kept her garden's roots strong, he knew he could do the same with his own life, facing each challenge as an opportunity to grow stronger and more resilient. The end.